After leading for almost the entire game, once again, the Sacramento Kings are done in by their horrendous fourth quarter offense. But this time, Doug Christie and the team are finally actually talking about it. You'll hear from Doug and DeMar DeRozan. We got a lot to break down from this Kings loss to the Dallas Mavericks right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Kings lose to the Dallas Mavericks 100-98 in a game where they led for 43 minutes and 10 seconds out of a 48-minute game. Sacramento was in full control of this game, really from the jump. The last time the Dallas Mavericks had the lead was 14-13 midway through the first quarter. From that point on, the Kings dominated, were in full control, led by as many as 12 points throughout this game. Never really pulled away necessarily, but no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Kings were in full control of this game. They get to the fourth quarter, and it's not that they took their foot off the gas. It's that they kept their foot on the gas, except they drove into a wall or veered off of a cliff. I wish I could say that the Sacramento Kings are tanking. I wish I could say that the Sacramento Kings are intentionally trying to lose basketball games. I don't think they are at all. Unfortunately, well, or maybe fortunately in terms of draft lottery odds, they're just so terrible in the fourth quarter that they're going to lose enough games to put themselves in a really, really good draft position. 20 points in the fourth quarter. 20 points, 34% from the field, 12% from three-point range in the entire quarter. The Kings scored just 7 points over the final 3.5 minutes of this game. And as I've talked about many times before, especially recently here on Locked On Kings, the Sacramento Kings are second to last in fourth quarter scoring in the NBA this season. They averaged 25.5 points in the fourth quarter. The only team worse than them is the Washington Wizards, who average 25.2. So congratulations, Kings. You're not dead last by 0.3. Whoop-de-doo. This team's offense is atrocious. Atrocious in the fourth quarter. It completely falls apart. If they're doing anything well for the game when they're in control, they go away from it. The basketball gets sticky. It's isolation, your turn, my turn, hero ball nonsense that keeps resulting in the Sacramento Kings falling apart down the stretch. Again, we've talked about all of this before, many times already over the course of this season. So, Matt, why is this time different? Why is this podcast different? Because this time, Doug Christie and the Kings finally talked about it. I want you to really lock in for the next 3 minutes. I'm going to play for you audio from DeMar DeRozan's press conference and Doug Christie's press conference addressing the fourth quarter offense and specifically the final play for the Kings that they tried to execute when they had a chance to win this game with a 3 or tie with a 2. Listen to what DeMar says the problem is, and then listen to what Doug Christie talks about, and hear how they contradict one another. Take a listen, and we'll react to it on the other side. DeMar, you've made a career out of thriving in offense in the fourth quarter. This team statistically is amongst the bottom in fourth quarter scoring. From your perspective, with all the years you've had in the league, what is causing the fourth quarter offensive struggles for this group?
It's just got to be better with execution. understanding what we could take advantage of, spacing, timing on spacing, understanding, how teams playing us, if they doubling, who they doubling, where they doubling from. I think just being more organized with us, more so than anything. That's the only issue. We don't give ourselves consistently chances to get, good shots off, good looks off. So I think that's all it is. The last one, wish we could have got, to my point, just being more organized, understanding what we could get instead of, trying to rely on a, one leg 30-footer to go in. Just got to give ourselves a better chance to get a shot off, make something happen.
We worked today on a play, and the guys chose to run wide. They're out there. I told them, I almost ran on the court telling them everyone knew the play, and they ran wide, which was, not my choice in that moment. But I do know from being on the floor, if you have a feel in those moments. But the particular play was one that Debo would have been going to the corner, would have missed direction, Zach coming back up through an elevator, and then Keon getting a screen on the backside from Dylan. So you'd have had 3 looks at an open look, hopefully. And oddly enough, we went through it today and shoot around, but the opportunity presented itself, and so the execution wasn't what we wanted.
This team is second to last in the NBA in overall fourth quarter scoring. Seems like that should be a strength of this team with the amount of veterans on this roster. Whether it's balancing mouths to feed or just trying to get the ball to the right person, what are you seeing from everybody, how they're moving the basketball or not moving the basketball?
Yeah, I mean, there was. I'm going to go back and look, but I definitely think that there was some shot selection that we could have done better. But most times the ball got into the guy's hands in areas that we wanted. We didn't make shots, and sometimes that is the key too. It looks great, and I'm a super smart guy all of a sudden that when guys make shots, and it's not that, it's they knock them down. In a game like this, you miss 6 free throws. It's just these are things that can happen, but there has to be the ability to close games. Debo, one of the best closers in the league, but we have to have the patience to have good shot selection in those moments to make sure. And we talked about it and we worked on it, and you put shooters around them in certain spots, high quad in the corner, big in the dunker, and if they want to help, you pass the ball to the right guy, and they shoot and make shots, hopefully. And tonight, on top of other things, that did not happen late.
So DeMar DeRozan brings up the organization. Not the Kings organization, but being organized. This team, not organized. He wishes they were more organized in the moments in the fourth quarter, that they were more together. They knew what they were doing more. And it makes perfect sense. The eye test matches exactly what DeMar DeRozan is saying, because the Sacramento Kings in the half court do not know what to do with the basketball in the fourth quarter. They don't. Yes, there is so much talent on this roster. Yes, there are future Hall of Famers on this roster. DeMar DeRozan has made a career out of being a great fourth quarter closer. Russell Westbrook has come alive moment after moment after moment in the fourth quarter. Dennis Schroeder, one of the best closers in international ball. He has closed out games for Germany in on massive stages to win medals and cups for Germany. Zach LaVine, more than capable as a fourth quarter scoring option. This team is loaded with talent, but like we've talked about since the summertime, they don't gel, they don't mesh, they don't know how to play together. So the ball gets sticky, one guy gets it, dribbles the hell out of it, isolation ball, either forces a bad shot or passes it over to the next guy who dribbles the hell out of it and forces a bad shot. The Sacramento Kings have an unbelievable ability to pass the ball around sometimes, but nobody moves, and the defense doesn't even have to react. They don't move the ball in the half court in the fourth quarter. And DeMar DeRozan is saying we're not organized enough. But then you have Doug Christie talking about the last play. He said he didn't have a timeout to call, but he did run all the way out onto the floor almost and tell them, hey, I'm calling the set. I'm calling the play that we didn't work on in practice a few days ago. No, we worked on it in shoot-around this morning. We just went through this set. We just walked through it. Let's run it. Here's the spot. Let's work on what we've worked on. Let's execute. And he says that the players didn't do it, that the players chose to do something else. He said they chose to do something that I wouldn't have done. Now, Doug has, in his way, doesn't throw his players necessarily directly under the bus and say it's all their fault. He talks about, as a player, in the heat of the moment, sometimes you see something different and react differently. But does that not speak exactly to what DeMar DeRozan is saying about the lack of organization? And it's not coach's fault or the player's fault. The answer is it's a combination of both. Because when Doug is trying to be organized and execute a play, this Kings team that is veteran heavy with a bunch of guys that believe they know better or know how to close out a game because they've been doing it for over a decade, they resort to what they do best or what they think is the best thing to do. And newsflash, more often than not, it hasn't worked. What is my takeaway from that postgame press conference? That Doug Christie does not have control of this group. Doug Christie doesn't have control. He doesn't. They might all get along. They might be friends. He might say all the right things about them. They might say all the right things about him. But when it matters, when it comes to winning time, they don't do what Doug Christie wants. Doug doesn't have control. And that's not he's lost the locker room, fire Doug Christie take. That's just the reality of what we're seeing. He lacks control over a group of vets that has no idea how to close together. Organization isn't just on the coach to draw something up on the clipboard that his robot players automatically execute and automatically follow. The players have to be more organized themselves. The players have to execute better, especially considering the amount of freaking experience that is on the floor to close out these games. But they look terrible. They look like they've not been in these spots very many times in their career, period. It's a complete failure, top to bottom, on this organization. Nobody is on the same page down the stretch. And being on the same page isn't just a problem between the players in the fourth quarter or the players and the coaching staff in the fourth quarter. It's an organizational issue top to bottom. We'll talk about that. Plus, I want to talk about Keon Ellis, Maxime Reynaud, what the Kings were doing well defensively, leading to good offense for most of this game, but it's not reliable for this group. It's all still coming right here on Locked On Kings. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour and it brings something new every time. You get boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. It's right before the games and right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think, man, there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamline your communications. It's one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O. It's the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything so unbelievably simple. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It makes or works right from your phone or your computer. You can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off of your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. For the vast majority of this game, the Sacramento Kings were actually doing what Doug Christie talks so much about. They were using their defense to create opportunities for their offense. They were consistently getting stops. I mean, for God's sake, they held the Mavericks to 100 points. Anytime the Kings, on paper, hold a team to 100 points, they should win. The problem is their offense, net rating-wise, their offense is dead last in the NBA. Their offense is worse than their defense in terms of net rating. That's crazy. A Sacramento Kings roster featuring DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine, that team is worse offensively than they are defensively. Am I in the twilight zone? How does that make sense? But it's true. And Doug Christie got this team to create consistent stops and get out in transition, which is one of the best ways that this team can score. The Kings had 30 fast break points in this game. Again, you tell me the Kings had 30 fast break points and held their opponents to 100 points. I'm telling you, yeah, the Kings are winning that game because they should, but they didn't because their fourth quarter offense is so bad. The Kings had only six fast break points in the fourth quarter. Defense to offense makes sense. It's a understandable approach for a head coach who's defensive-minded, like Doug Christie. But defense to offense, having your most effective offense based off of the stops that you are generating and getting out in transition, is not realistic for this group. It never has been. It never will be. So if Doug Christie's game plan as a head coach is offensively, we will not be at our best, or we cannot be close to our best if we're not generating stops consistently, and then you look at his roster top to bottom, you're going, well, dude, you're screwed. You're screwed. This is why you have 8 wins and a bajillion losses. This is why you're at the bottom of the NBA, where we never expected you to be. Look, Dallas is awful. The Mavs are terrible. I don't know. I mean, they have, 6 more wins than the Sacramento Kings? The Mavs are really, really bad. They just so happen to have Cooper Flagg, and then Anthony Davis was back tonight. We didn't see him the last time the Kings and Mavericks played here in Sacramento. The Mavs are not good. The Kings were way better than the Dallas Mavericks for the vast majority of this game. So the Kings were able to get out in transition, get stops consistently, and score 30 fast break points because the Mavericks are this bad. Most teams are not going to be this bad. So again, it's never, ever consistently going to work to have a defense to offense approach for this group with the roster that the Sacramento Kings have. It speaks to the clear and obvious disconnect throughout all levels of this organization. And funny enough, it goes right back to what Mike Brown said the day that he was hired and had his introductory press conference. I promise I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Mike Brown. I'm using it to prove an overall point. Mike talked about all levels of the organization having to buy in and to be on the same page. Does it feel like any level of the Sacramento Kings organization is on the same page right now? Doug Christie and Scott Perry might say we're united in what we're trying to do, but your actions don't match your words. That's why this trade deadline is so important. You got to start making some moves. The front office has to start making some actions that match the words of what they're saying. And Doug Christie's rotations at times have not matched at all what he's been trying to say because he's still playing these veterans who don't play defense and are struggling offensively heavy minutes while he has guys like Malik Monk who are just not playing period right now. And he had Keon Ellis in and out of the lineup getting DMPs at times. Now he's back in the rotation. It's all over the place. It hasn't made sense. It hasn't made sense at all. This Kings organization, top to bottom, desperately just needs to get on the same page. All levels. Get this roster to match how you are trying to play. And don't just say this is how you're trying to play. Actually try and play that way on the floor. Play guys and rotations that make sense. I don't blame Doug Christie and Scott Perry right now for the vast majority of this roster not fitting that image, because this roster has been bad since before Doug stepped into the head coaching spot and Scott Perry took over. It was the disaster and the mistakes of Monty McNair, Vivek Ranadive, and the last regime. But boy, they haven't done anything really to clean it up too much. Again, that's why all eyes are on the Kings at the trade deadline. We are seeing Keon Ellis look like himself again, which is nice to see. Keon Ellis had 5 points, 1 of 4 from three-point range. We'd like to see more of those three-pointers drop. But 3 steals and a block. He looks like himself on defense again. Why do you think that is? Because he's playing consistently again. Here are his last handful of games. Tonight, 23 points. The other night versus Milwaukee, 23 minutes, excuse me. The other night against Milwaukee, only 5 minutes, but remember he had that random, I think, thumb injury that came out of nowhere that no one saw coming. He had 35 minutes the night before that, 27 the night before that, 19 the night before that, 22, 32. This man is starting to play consistent basketball again. He knows that he's going to be getting consistent playing time. He knows that he's part of the rotation, coming in off the bench every single night for Doug Christie, and suddenly he looks like himself again. Shocking. You give a player consistent playing time, you give them a rhythm or a chance to get a rhythm, and they play some of their best basketball. Keon Ellis is looking like himself again defensively. He was a menace for Sacramento defensively tonight. He was giving the Dallas Mavericks fits in so many ways tonight. I guess I understand why he wasn't on the floor for most of the game down the stretch, because you got to have your veterans out there. You got to have your guys that have been in the league for a billion years to close this out, even though they can't close the games out together consistently. They've proven that. But at least Keon is playing consistently, finding a rhythm, and we're starting to see him look like himself again, especially on the defensive end. That's a big positive. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everybody on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens and guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. You can get amazing views from your seat before buying. It makes choosing tickets easy and confident. Prices include fees up front, so the total is very clear from the start. Features like zone deals help unlock great seats at even better value, and whether it's an NBA game or whatever live event, everything is right there in one place on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that's LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. Before we wrap up, I actually wanted to share with you something that happened before the game tonight. In Doug Christie's introductory press conference, I asked Doug about Maxime Reynaud's development in the pick and roll, because Max has clearly gotten significantly better over the course of this season at being a pick and roll threat center. He's obviously getting important starting center minutes with the injury to Domantas Sabonis. And without a doubt, he is benefiting from playing with veteran point guards like Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder, who, for the most part, know how to get him the basketball. I don't know for some reason why Russell Westbrook does not give the ball to Maxime Reynaud when he's wide open for three. Maybe it's just not what the Kings want Max doing. I don't know why, because that's what he was really good at Stanford. I know the jumper isn't very fast, but we're talking there. I've watched 2 or 3 times in person where Max has been wide open for three, and Russ either stares him off or waves him off because he wants him to get down low and get towards the rim. Again, maybe that's what the Sacramento Kings are trying to do. Maybe that's the game plan. But I would love to see the Kings get Max that ball and let him shoot that three a few times. Again, it's part of his game, or at least we think it is, coming out of college. It certainly was part of his game at Stanford. But for the most part, Max has absolutely benefited from playing like with Russell Westbrook especially. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But also, it's not all because of Russ that Max is playing this well. It's not all because of Schroeder that Max is playing this well. So I wanted to ask Doug, what is Max doing? Where has Max grown? What is Max showing you that makes your job easier, or the point guard's jobs easier? Where is Max showing the most growth or the best stuff that he's doing as the roll man, the big man in the pick and roll? And Doug said a number of things. That was a really long answer, so I won't play it for you. I'll just kind of summarize what he said. One of the first things he said that he wants Max to do the majority of the time is he wants Max to roll with his chest facing the ball. He wants him to be opened up. That way he's ready to receive the ball at all times. Doug talks about the pocket closes really quickly, meaning after the pick, the defenders try and close in and take away the space of the ball handler, so Max needs to be ready to receive that ball quickly and go up at the rim. Says some centers, a lot of centers, like Derek Lively, for example, who's not playing with the Dallas Mavericks right now, these rim-running centers, these guys that want to catch lobs and throw down oops, they'll completely turn their back to the ball handler because they're expecting the ball up high or at the rim. Doug doesn't want Max to do that. Doug wants Max to be ready to receive it and go up or go to that floater. And Doug actually praised the soft touch that Max has developed and shown off in the paint. He actually commented on how great his left hand has become scoring around the rim and those floaters always being there for him and how he's been knocking them down at a high rate. But another thing Doug talked about that I thought was interesting is he said on at least 80% of the screens that Max sets, he wants Max to hit the defender. The whole point of a pick and roll is you create an advantage with the screen. And he wants Max to screen hard. Nothing dirty, nothing violent, but one of the things Doug talks about a lot, make him feel you, right? So 80% of the time minimum, he wants Max to wait until he sets a solid screen, creates that contact, which creates separation for the ball handler, and then Max can roll to the basket. And then Max can go and look to score, and Russ or Schroeder or the ball handler can get him the basketball. So 80% of the time, he wants Max making contact. He said that's difficult sometimes for rookies to do. But he commented on the fact that Max is a sponge. He's an incredibly fast learner. Like he's coached very well, or he takes coaching very well and has grown so much. And I think we've all clearly seen that over the course of his NBA career to this point. Dylan Cardwell played tonight. Yay! I'm so glad Dylan Cardwell got some run in this game this evening. It's just way better to play him over Drew Eubanks. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just play Dylan Cardwell over Drew Eubanks for the rest of the season, or until Domantas Sabonis comes back, or doesn't. I don't know. But just play Dylan Cardwell on a nightly basis. He did his job. 4 points, 9 rebounds, 1 block. Did get into foul trouble. So did Max. You're going against Anthony Davis. I would kind of expect it. All right. I want to let you guys know that I say tomorrow, but at the time of this recording, because 8 o'clock games are the worst thing on the planet, and it's after midnight right now that I'm recording this podcast here in the Golden One Center, because the game ended just before 11 freaking o'clock. Later today, I guess, this afternoon, I have a big announcement coming. You won't miss it. I'll drop it here on the Locked On Kings channel. Audio listeners, I will drop it where you get your podcasts. Something that I need you guys to hear. I want you guys to hear. It's a pretty big deal for me. It's something that's happening that I'm certainly excited about. Just I didn't want to do it at the end of this show today because I didn't want to just shove it at the end. I wanted to make sure I take the time to talk about it as much as I need to talk about it. So I have an announcement coming later on this afternoon. I know a lot of you are probably listening to this or watching to this, and it's the morning time. Like you're on your way to work or getting your morning routine. So keep an eye out on this afternoon around 3:30 Pacific time, I believe, is when I'm going to drop something here on the Locked On Podcast, Locked On Kings podcast channel and networks and everything, just with a pretty big announcement that I have. So I'll talk to you at that point. If you want to reach out and chat with me about this game, please feel free to do so. Your thoughts on the fourth quarter offense, the execution. I want to hear your thoughts on what Doug Christie and DeMar DeRozan said. That's your homework assignment. I want to hear what you think about what those two guys said about the fourth quarter offense, because it was fascinating to me. So let me know. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can leave your comments down in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube. I will see you later on today for that big announcement. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.